Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to another episode of Insights for Manufacturing. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Tony Ryan, who is the CEO at the Design and Technology Association. So welcome to the show, Tony.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. So I wanted to get straight into a burning question before finding out a little bit more about the association. What challenges do you see in encouraging more youngsters to choose a career in manufacturing and engineering?
Straight in at the deep end, eh? Right. Okay. I think it's first of all, it's probably quite important to give a little bit of my background. I was 33 years in schools in education, and out of those 33, for 31 of them, I was either a head of department, a deputy head, or a head teacher. Any response that I give you will be influenced by that experience.
Yes.
When kids come through, you get a fair few kids that will come to you and say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to work in the city with money, I want to get rich, I want to do this, I want to do that or the other. I could probably count on my one hand, let alone two, the number of kids over the years that have come to me and said, I want to work in manufacturing.
Yeah.
And there's the problem, is that word means nothing to them. They don't understand. The majority of students will not understand that word. They know that there is stuff that we make as a country, and they will buy stuff regularly, but they won't give an awful lot of thought to how it gets made, who
Right.
makes.
Okay.
And I guess our job really as design and technology teachers nationally, not the association for a moment, but teachers, is to give students a better awareness of why things are made the way they're made, why they're designed the way they're made, what materials are used and why they're used, what machines might be used in order to make these things. And good design and good manufacturing makes the world a better place, is the bottom line. That's the mantra that we've got, is that you never notice something that's well designed. If it's well designed and it's well made, you probably use it for years and you might say, I love that thing, but you're never really going to spend much time thinking about it.
Yeah.
Where you will spend time thinking about it is if it's badly made and it's badly designed, in which case you will curse the day you bought it. And that's what we need to do with kids. We need to get them thinking in that way, and we need to show them what's possible as well, because one of the beauties of my job is I get out quite a lot and I get to see stuff being manufactured and stuff being designed and stuff being engineered. And it's exciting where we are. It's exciting what's going on out there, and the way that technology is informing that and progressing that. And unless you share that story with students, you're not going to get more than that single hand that actually says, I want to be in manufacturing.
Yeah. So what's the best way then to get this message across? I mean, I've had a number of conversations over the last couple of years with different people, some of them within further education, lots of people within manufacturing, and the schools, I think, have got a part to play, parents have got a part to play, manufacturing's got a part to play, and various organizations like yourselves. But what's the best route to get to the kids and get the best type of message across that's going to resonate with them? Have you got a set process for doing that, or are you doing anything differently to everyone else?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we are. I hope we are. We've set out to do that. So there's lots out there. There are more STEM organizations out there aimed at informing students about the where a STEM education can take you.
Yeah.
Hundreds. I think at the last count, it was something like 700 different organizations out there working with schools in order to bring that sort of stuff in. I've got a very, very strong opinion that unless it's embedded in curriculum, it's an extra, it's a bolt on. And I've talked to many people in business who say, I get invited into a school and it's for an open day where they're looking at careers, and I get a table and I'm allowed to talk to any student that I can get the attention of that walks past me.
Yeah.
actually, what I want is more than that. I want to share what we're doing because I think what we're doing is a brilliant thing. So I want that to be part of their education. I really want to help. We've got expertise that we could share with the school, but we don't know how to do that. So we're doing a few things where we're trying to join up those two quite often disparate worlds sometimes of education and industry.
Yeah.
Um, and I know as an educator that schools are really hard places to communicate with. That's done on purpose. You know, as a
Mm.
head teacher, I had a big wall up in front of me to stop people from pestering me from the day job. Otherwise, I'd be distracted all day long.
Yeah.
Um, and I know as well, industry. So industry from the other end can be an unknown to many head teachers. The majority of which, if we're really honest, have gone from school to university back to school. So they've never been in industry. They don't really understand it. And what I hear from a lot of people in industry is the only time we ever hear from schools is when they want a check, when they want money for this or they want money for that. And,
Yeah.
and that's a fair accusation. I think where it really sings and where the two join up is where you get curriculum work that covers what the students need to know, but covers it in a way that excites them and that is real, and that they can actually somehow get their lived experience to mean something to that. So
Yeah.
that means something to me. I've bought a product that's like that, so I understand it. So what we're trying to do is, first of all, we act as that conduit between school and industry. We've got a program called Blueprint 1000 that does that,
Okay.
and we join the two up. And we also are working on some curriculum work at the moment. There's a website called inspiredbyindustry.org.uk where we're taking real problems that industry are working on at the moment and we're scaling them down so as students 11 to 14 can work on the exact same problem. Um,
Brilliant.
and that then embeds it in curriculum. So it's not an extra, it's not a nice to have. If a teacher leaves, it doesn't matter because that's embedded in your curriculum. That's
Yeah.
going to stay there.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great way of doing it, making it feel real for the students as well. It's not all theory; it's a real
Yeah.
industrial problem or challenge, isn't it?
And that's a really important part of it is there's video in that content, and the video is really important because I want kids to look at somebody talking to them from industry and ask themselves the question,
Yeah.
wonder what that person's done to get where they are, because I didn't realize that was a job. I've had so many kids say that, designing, for example, engineering, manufacturing as well. I didn't realize that people actually did that because they've never stopped and thought about it.
Yeah.
They've never seen it. If you haven't got a family member that's in manufacturing, why would you?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the sort of signposting and educating of people outside of the sector, whether it's schools, parents, the kids themselves, trying to get other people into the sector. Unless you're in it, as you said at the start, you're oblivious. We all use, see, feel, and touch things every day that have been through a manufacturing or engineering process. And that's, to me, that's such a simple thing. But I've been in and around manufacturing or engineering for over 30 years, so it's a no-brainer. But as you say, if you're not from that sort of background, you take it for granted. It's just like I and we all take certain things for granted if we're not totally in the know about it. So it's it's not just about getting the word out, though, is it? You've got to send that message out in the right fashion to hit the right sort of chords with the youngsters, as you say, make it relevant to them, make it exciting. It's also about sparking their own curiosity, isn't it?
I think that's what design and technology is all about. It's
Yeah.
if you think when you're really small, if you've got a 3-year-old that you've taken out for a day, you're going to be bored answering the question why. They'll be like, why is that color? Why is the sky blue? Why are we getting there? Why are we doing that? And by the time you're 14 or 15, if you're not careful, you stop asking why. You just accept that that's how it is.
Yeah.
And what we want to do in design and technology is we want a sort of perpetual sense of curiosity where students are constantly asking, why is it designed like that? Why is it made that way? Well,
Yeah.
why do they use that material? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. Um, And if they're thinking like that, the very worst you're going to get is you're going to get some really picky consumers that will be very careful about what they buy. And
Yep.
one of the questions they should be asking themselves right from day one is, at end of life, where does this end up? Does it end up in landfill? If so, do I really need it? And then at the other end of it, you're going to get kids that will go that step further and start thinking, I wonder if I could work in that sector. I wonder if I could
Yeah.
find out a little bit more about that, because that's something that really flicks a switch for me. It intrigues me. So, yeah, there's a scale of where you are with it, but that's what D&T is all about, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's I mean, just giving a sort of brief breakdown of your services, the DTA, what are you, so you're engaging with schools, educational institutions, you know, promoting careers in manufacturing. For somebody that isn't familiar with your organization, how would you sort of describe what you do and the different sort of services that you provide? Have you got like a, you know, there must be sort of bandwidth there for different things, different approaches, different topics. How would you sort of educate somebody that's not familiar with what you do?
Let me try and give you a very succinct answer to that. I mean, we were created in 1989.
Yeah.
We are a charity, and our function as a charity initially, when it was set up, was to support the subject of design and technology in schools nationally. So we were focused completely at schools. We weren't focused on industry very much at all. I came in 6 years ago, and I must admit, as a head teacher and as a deputy, I always, and this is a chip on my shoulder, I didn't get school. School made no sense to me. And the reason it made no sense to me is nobody told me why I was learning what I was learning. It's like, you've got to learn this maths, learn Pythagoras' theorem. Well, why? You know, and for me, that was a question that was big for me. Why am I learning this? What use is that going to be? If somebody had sat down and said, actually, all you're learning with Pythagoras is you're learning how to solve a problem, and you're going to solve lots of problems over the course of your life, I'd have probably engaged with it 50% more.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the type of school that existed in those days. It was like, learn that, do that exam, bang, there you go. What we're trying to do is look at a different form of education. We want, in design and technology, you want students that are going to learn how to design. They're going to question why things are made the way they're made.
Yeah.
They're going to question the cost of it. You know, why does it cost that much money? How much profit is coming out of that for somebody? And am I happy with that? So there's three things we're doing. First of all, we are still focusing on schools. We're still working with teachers in schools, and we've got 20% of all schools in the country are members of us at the moment at primary level. And
Okay.
at secondary level, we're pushing nearly 60% of schools are members. Even where we have not got membership in schools, we've got access to schools. So
Okay.
through the design and technology department, or through a teacher that's got responsibility for it, we will have access. So
Yeah.
we have access to nearly every school in the country. And then, as I mentioned, there's those two things previously. The other two things we're trying to do, I came in with very much a view that we need to connect with industry, and we need business and industry working with us. There's all sorts of reasons for that, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a moment.
Yeah.
But the only way that's going to work is if we work as a conduit between the two. So that's what Blueprint is all about, is that we try and join it up. So a company will look to us and say, look, we're doing a little bit of work with schools at the moment, but we'd like to do a little bit more.
Yep.
Drivers for that might be talent acquisition, where some companies are saying, we're just not getting kids applying to us that we want more. So talent acquisition could be one. Diversity could be another, that, you know, all the kids that apply to us are from the same background.
Yep.
And actually we want some kids from other backgrounds to apply. So let's get into some different schools where you're going to get some diversity. Or it could be corporate social responsibility, where there's a budget there and they just think, well, you know, we want to make a difference with socially economic hard hit schools, for example.
Yeah.
We can help them with that. So there's that side of it. And the first thing we do with any company that comes on board is we sit down and say, what do you want to achieve in 12 months time? What does success look like to you? And one company that joined us recently said, well, we're based in Leicestershire. We just want to work with schools in and around where we are. And we want maybe 15 schools to engage with us over the course of the next year.
Yeah.
So we'll write that out, memorandum of understanding. That's what we're going to achieve. there is a cost for it. It's 3,800 quid, and then that pays us basically to work on their behalf to do the join up and to make sure that it
Yeah.
works. We don't just do it and then walk away either. We stay with it. We make sure that it fulfills everything that it's promised right at the start. The Inspired by Industry stuff is new. It's the first projects went out in September
Okay.
this year, and that's got a whole new that's got a whole different purpose to it. What we're trying to do is change the nature of the work that kids are doing at school. Um, if anyone's watching this, listening to this now, that remembers design and technology when they were at school, they probably remember making something. It was a pencil case, a clock, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We've got to become about more than the making. The making is important. It's an important part of our subject, but I would say more important is you're not making it for yourself. You're not making it for fun. You're making it for somebody else. So you've got to have empathy with that person that you're making it for.
Yeah.
You've then got to work out, okay, what's my budget? How much have I got to make it to? That cuts certain materials out. It cuts certain manufacturing processes out. That only works if you understand the manufacturing processes. If you know
Yeah.
what a lathe does, you know what a mill does, you know what a vacuum former does. So we're trying to inform the kids to make informed decisions as they come through, making products to solve problems that exist that are real out there in the world. So as an organization, we're working with schools, but increasingly we're trying to join up that school industry link.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about how the DTA sort of works with educators to ensure that the curricula is fit for purpose, not just for the kids' education, but it's going to actually provide people coming out of school that are going to be a little bit more fit for purpose going into industry at entry level in the first place. So I think that probably what you just said sums that up, doesn't it? You're working with who are you working with to make these changes to the sort of curricula? Is it the Department of Education or how's that sort of working?
Yeah, we work with the department, and we're working quite closely with the Department for Education at the moment because
Yeah,
design and technology. It might surprise people to learn that at our peak we had 430,000 GCSE entries,
yeah,
and that was 2003. We're now down to 78,000 last year. Um,
that's a
so
huge drop. Yeah.
it's massive. It's massive, and there's all sorts of reasons for that. There's a lack of subject specialists in school.
Mm,
Probably about 4 times more expensive to deliver design and technology than it is, for example, geography.
yeah.
So if you are short a budget in school, then that's a department that you might think, well, we can't afford it. Uh,
Mm,
Also, it might surprise people to know that as an academy, which is 80% of all secondary schools in the country now, you have complete jurisdiction over what you deliver, other than maths, science, and English.
yeah.
So any other subject you deliver, you can drop. And if you can make a case to Ofsted that this wasn't important for your students, then you're probably going to get away with it with Ofsted. So
Yeah.
a number of schools are no longer delivering design and technology, which means that I'll give you a real example. I was in a university a short while ago, and there was a load of kids around a pillar drill using a pillar drill. I think it was about, I say kids, they weren't kids, they were 17 years old, 18 years old.
Yeah.
They were asked which way around the drill went, and the guy that was doing the instruction was only joking, but not one of them around that pillar drill knew which way to put the drill bit in the machine. They didn't know. They'd not experienced that at school.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at now. If we don't make this subject more prominent in schools, you're going to find that the whole first or second year of an apprenticeship is going to have to change because you're teaching basic stuff that you would have otherwise assumed would be there.
Yeah. Well, we really don't need that as an industry or as an economy, do we? I mean, manufacturing needs to grow. We need to be making more stuff. We've already got a skills crisis, but if things like that, if the basics are actually going backwards, that's a much worse scenario than I was even aware of. So that's been a bit of an eye opener, really. I mean, crikey, education department need to be a little bit more aligned with the industrial people and the top decision makers in government, because we need it as an economy, don't we? We need these basic skills.
Also, there's we have a mental health crisis with young
Yeah,
people at the moment, and I'm not saying this is the sole reason for doing it, but actually, there's a real joy in making something. There's a real, making something, creating something from nothing. Is good for your head,
yeah, yeah,
and using your hands and your head together is something that I think we should be teaching all young people, even if they then go on and work in finance or whatever it might be. It's not wasted time. It's not wasted energy. These skill sets will stay with them for the rest of their life.
yeah,
And that's another reason to teach it. I accept that we are not, the purpose of education is not to turn out kids that are going to go into manufacturing, engineering, design, whatever it might be, are ready to go. They haven't got the education that's allows them to then just step in and do a job. There's going to be a process 16 to 18 or post 18 that's going to fine tune those skills,
yeah,
but the basics should be there, and a student should have a sense of curiosity, which we said earlier,
yeah,
which makes them want to find out more and learn more, and makes them not afraid to make a mistake. That's the other thing that I'm gonna, because I think we have an education system that is risk adverse,
yeah,
and therefore kids are afraid to make a mistake. And actually, if
yeah,
you're making anything, you and I both know you're going to need to mess it up a number of times before you get it right.
yeah,
And that's not terminal. That's just part of the process. That's how
yeah,
you learn.
yeah.
So that's another thing we're trying to do in design and technology is make failing okay. I actually don't want to call it failing. I want to call it learning.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I did something, it didn't work. I learned a load from it, and when I do it next time around, it'll be better.
Well, that's applicable to any job, isn't it? Anything in life, really. We're all human. We make mistakes, but as long as you learn from them, that's part of your development. It makes us better at whatever it is we're trying to do. So, yeah, huge fan of that. So,
So
how does the Design and Technology Association actually collaborate with a manufacturing organization or an engineering business to help bridge that gap between where the education bit finishes and what the industry needs are?
we're working increasingly now with universities. So we've reached out to universities and said, okay, we've recognized a gap that we work 11 to 18 in schools.
Yeah,
Students will do their A levels and then will leave, or BTECs or whatever it might be. They will then leave, and some will go to university. But we then sort of let go at that stage, and then we pick up again at industry. And we've decided that as an organisation, we need to be more involved in that middle stage of university itself. So
yeah,
we're working with manufacturing with a couple of universities. The beauty there is that universities are covering skill sets that the schools can't cover. They struggle to cover. So we've got one uni in London at the moment. Their thing is material science, and the
mm,
schools in and around them struggle with that. So
right,
we're getting the teachers into evening sessions in the university to learn the material science that they can then bring back to the students in school.
yeah,
So we are a join up there with that, but we also reach out and we just say, look, we want to work with you. Um, we want to embed you in schools, whether that's nationally. We've got a couple of partners that have just said we want to work right the way across the country, and we want to hit as many schools as possible. Fine, we can do that. That might be a competition. That might be a resource that we push out to schools that you help us create.
yeah,
Um, or then we got one employer that is based near Bristol, and they've just said, we're quite happy to open our doors once a year for teachers. And if we can bring teachers in here and show them what we do and show them how we do it,
yeah,
can you get us 24 to 27 teachers that would be interested in learning the manufacturing process as we see it?
yeah,
Um, Now that 24, 27, I could fill that twice every year, because we've got teachers that are crying out for that at the moment, that are saying, I don't really understand it, but this is part of the syllabus. This is what I've got to teach. A day there would
yeah.
really make the difference to me. So there's a number of different ways, Jeff, that we do it, but it's important to us to do so.
Absolutely. And I think if you're teaching anything, you've got to have a certain level of knowledge and expertise about the topic, haven't you? And the teachers, I'm not bemoaning teachers; they do a great job in the main. But something, if you've got a technical topic, and let's face it, some of the manufacturing, engineering principles, some of those haven't changed for 100 years. Some of the sort of physics behind it and the calculations or what have you, but the manufacturing processes are changing all the time. There's look at the last 20 years, automation and robotics and things like that. It wasn't too far ago in history that CAD was a new thing. Look at that side of things that's come on so fast. Now we've got AI, and technology and manufacturing and engineering processes are moving at pace. We've got advanced materials, we've got additive manufacturing.
Yeah.
I think it's great for the teachers to get to grips with some new things. And if they're saying, well, we're teaching this in the syllabus but not really up to speed with it, I mean, that's never right, is it?
You can't do that from a book. You can't read a book and then go and teach a class. You've got to see it, you've got to feel it, you've got to talk
Yeah,
to people that are involved in it. And the closer you can get to it, the more real that experience is going to be for the students. And believe
yeah,
me, when you've got 25, 14-year-olds in front of you, if you don't know what you're talking about, they smell that within 30 seconds and you're in trouble. So
yeah,
you do
absolutely.
you do need to know. But you're right, our subject moves so fast. I mean, let me give you a quick example. We've brought 3D printers into 36 primary schools at the moment on a loan basis.
Yeah,
And we've said to the primary coordinator, D&T, you got 6 weeks with this machine. It comes into school. We'll give you a whole load of learning materials beside it. We'll give you a video of how to get it out of the box on the table and do your first print, because they're frightened of something new that they've not seen before.
yeah,
And at the end of the 6 weeks, if you don't like it, just pack it up and send it back, and you've lost nothing. Now, we've got schools queuing up for this at the moment because we've got about 24. The other option at the end of the 6 weeks is you purchase the machine at a reduced rate
yeah,
because you see that it's going to have a place in your curriculum. 24 out of 36 have stuck. And that's because you got primary kids. And the problem we give them is a real simple one. Everyone blowing bubbles and a little bubble bottle. Everyone loves to do that. The challenge we give them is you've got to blow the biggest bubble possible, and that comes through the size and the shape of the end of the bubble blower.
yeah,
So you've got to 3D print your bubble blower. And the other thing is, when you turn it upside down, all the mixture comes down the stick and all over your fingers, and you get all sticky fingers. Design something on that stick that's going to slow that process of that fluid getting down onto your fingers.
yeah,
It's a sort of dual problem. Now, the kids love it because they're blowing bubbles, trying it. It didn't work. My mate's was much better than mine, so I'm going to go back and design it again now. Then
yeah,
I'm going to 3D print it again. There is a magic. I must admit, I've seen it a million times. Yet every time I see a 3D printer at work, I'm sort of slightly, the jaw drops a little bit. It's
yeah,
still a bit of a magic to it. So if
yeah,
you've never seen that before and you're 9 years old, that is like a magician coming to school. That is just amazing. And they make this and then they produce it. And at the end of the 6 weeks, most of the schools are saying, I'm not letting that go now. That's an essential part of our curriculum.
yeah.
If we can teach kids at that level, at 9 years old, how to use a 3D printer and how to iterate a design, just imagine what you could do with a 14, 15-year-old if you progress that forward.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to ask you about the overall attraction and retention of talent in manufacturing. I think if you're using more modern kit equipment, and 3D printers are probably that's the hot spot at the moment, isn't it? Additive manufacturing. Um, it's I mean, I just find it fascinating. They've been around for a while, probably, I don't know, probably over 15 years. They were first used, I think, in rapid prototyping and stuff like that. But you can buy them now for, I don't know, what, 4, 5, 600 quid, and have
Less than
have one
that.
at home even.
Yeah,
um
less than that. And the CAD as well is free to schools.
right,
So
okay,
you've got the big manufacturers of CAD, the big software houses are making it free to educators.
yeah,
So and also it's quite intuitive. So you've got primary school kids that are designing these things on CAD, linking it to a 3D printer
yeah,
and joining the processes up. And that's why we've got to change at Key Stage 3, because you imagine a primary school student does that and loves that, and then the first thing they do when they go to secondary school is they make a pencil case out of wood. I'm going backwards.
Yeah,
About 5 years ago.
yeah,
So we've got to keep pushing. We've got to keep stretching, and if we keep doing that, we're going to have some pretty switched on 17, 18 year olds that are going to think, do you know what? I want to work in this sector. I want to do it because it's exciting. It moves fast,
yeah,
and that excites kids. Where they can. I talk about my boy because my boy he's 24 now. He's just come back from university. He's not bothered about money. There's this fallacy that kids of his generation, they just want more money. He said, look, I've come back from university. I've worked quite hard. I've got a good degree. I want to start on maybe 24 grand. He said, but more important to me is at the end of the week, I actually feel that I've done something worthwhile.
yeah.
And that's where most kids are. They want a fair wage, but they want to feel they're making a difference.
It's
And
purpose,
if I
isn't
was
it?
to say, if I was to say one thing to manufacturing companies, how are you getting that message to schools, to kids, that through working for your company, they can go home at the end of every week and they can hand on heart say, I made a difference this week.
Yeah.
Because that's the golden piece of advice I would give.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's just exciting listening to you say that, because, there are so many applications and, industrial sectors, the medical industry, medical devices, if kids thought about, well, some of these manufacturing processes are saving people's lives. They're enabling people to have new hips or new, things that can, increase the quality of life. We all know somebody who's had a major illness or a surgical procedure, or we've suffered loss. The medical pharmaceutical industry, manufacturing and engineering is integral to those. The environmental thing, renewables, whether it's recycling, all of these things that benefit the planet, that benefit us in society and in our day-to-day lives, can't function without manufacturing and engineering. So, like you say, it's getting that message across, isn't it? It's getting them to think a little bit differently. And in that, I mean, as you said, the manufacturers and engineering businesses themselves, they're pretty good at, well, they're fantastic at making stuff. They're pretty good at articulating themselves to their customers, but to the outside world,
Yeah.
I think there's a gap there. And it's, we do bang on, I bang on a lot about the schools and the parents. This is why we've got a problem getting more youngsters into manufacturing. I think it's also, manufacturing has got to do a bit more as well to look at that side of things, not just focus on their own industry, but it's that talent pipeline. It's the early doors. We've got to get people interested and get manufacturing even on the radar to begin with. So I was going to ask you, what in your opinion, what can UK manufacturing do to help the Design and Technology Association in your mission to help them? Where do you think the gaps are, and what do you think needs to be done?
We can't have enough companies coming forward to say we want to work with you. I mean, that's the first step.
Okay.
If any company out there, or any director, any engineer, or whatever it might be out there listening, watching this now, thinking, well, that's all well and good, but how do I get involved? Well, the first step is, our website is designtechnology.org.uk. There's a contact on there. Just contact us.
Yep.
Tell us you're interested. It doesn't commit you to anything. You'll get a phone call from myself or from Ryan Ball or one of the other team, and we'll just say, what do you want to achieve? What are your goals? What do you want to do? And we'll then work with you to try and make that happen. Now, people quite often say, well, I've got a limited amount of time. It's our day business is we've got to reach these targets. We've got to reach this budget. We've got to
Yeah.
do this. I can't afford to spend one day a week or whatever, and we wouldn't expect that. So one of the questions we'll ask is, how much time have you got? If you're saying somebody's got 3 hours a week to put on this, great. Let's work out something that will work on 3 hours a week that's going to give you more impact with schools than you've got now.
Okay.
If somebody else comes and says, well, I've got somebody here that is a graduate and I want them to have a day a month on this or whatever it might be, we'll work something out there. We'll work a program out there. So the first step is to contact us. The second step is, and we're working with Make UK, we're working with the IET as well in order to try to get a unified voice behind this. Is government, whatever colour government that might be next year,
Yep.
uh, they need to recognise that manufacturing, engineering, design, these things we've always been good at. We've always punched above our weight. There is an assumption by some people in government that that will always happen, even if we can continue to ignore them. So we'll ignore that sector. If we take design, if we take manufacturing, and if we take engineering, 1 in 8 people in the country are employed in one of those sectors. It puts in over 600 billion to GDP. It's
Yep.
massive. So we can't afford to ignore it. So the other thing that people can do is say, look, we're quite happy. We want our voice to be heard. We want government. We want to put our logo on your website that says, we really value this subject. We want this subject to be given more time,
Yeah.
more space on curriculum, and we want every school to be teaching this, not just schools that fancy it. So it's that political movement as well, because I think there was an argument that government, again, of whatever colour, will say, well, Design and Technology Association, they would say that, wouldn't they? That's their job. But
Yeah.
when industry starts saying, you know what, we need this because we need the talent pipeline, we need people coming through, then that's when government starts listening.
Absolutely. So the key word there, as always, I think, is collaboration and talking to people. There's a lot of different associations, trade bodies, membership groups, individual businesses. Pretty much everybody's talking about the same issues. Yet I still see quite a lot of fragmentation up and
Mm.
down the country in industry in general. Whether it's manufacturing, engineering, or whatever. Everybody's trying to do the best job possible. I know that for an absolute fact, but I think the overall effort, certainly when it comes to getting a little bit more support from the government, I think there needs to be a little bit more sort of coming together, and maybe organisations reaching out and sort of buddying up where they might not usually. Can be a bit awkward, bit painful, but they always say, and manufacturers will always say people don't like change. Manufacturing changes all the time, and manufacturers don't half get a bee in their bonnet when their staff don't want to change. But then I think the whole conversation, everybody just needs to come together for the common aim, and that might involve acting a little bit differently when it comes to working with other similar organizations or other similar businesses.
Let me
It's
give you a positive though, Jeff. Let me give you a positive. Like
Go on.
if I was going back before COVID, and we were reaching out with our blueprint initiative, etc., to industry,
Yeah.
and we were saying, look, we can work with you and we can connect you with schools. What we were hearing a lot before COVID was, that's not really our job. That's government's job. It's schools.
Mm,
It's not really our job. We're not hearing that anymore. We're hearing industry now saying, you know what, we need to roll our sleeves up. We need to
yeah.
get we need to get some skin in the game here now. How do we do that? How do we work with you? How can you help us? There's been I think a mind shift over COVID that, do you
Yep.
know, we can make this happen ourselves. We don't have to wait for somebody else to come and wave a wand. We can do this. So from our perspective, we've had over 300 companies approach us in the last year and say, we
Wow.
want to work with you. We
Yeah.
want your help to enable us to do this. I don't think that would have happened before COVID. I think there's been a mind shift there that people are
Yeah.
thinking, let's fix it. Let's get it sorted.
Well, lots to be positive for and hopeful for going into the new year. Then 2024. Hopefully, manufacturing is turning a bit of a corner, especially after the autumn statement. Lots of good stuff, loads of support out there if you know where to look. And obviously, the Design and Technology Association is one of those places in the overall jigsaw that's gonna get the finished picture there for everybody. So that pretty much wraps up today's discussion in this episode. So thank you for joining me, Tony. It's been a real pleasure to learn about the DTA. Clearly, you've got a passion. And what I love about you is that you've been on both sides of the fence as well. You're from an education teaching background as well, and now you're that sort of linchpin, being the benefit for UK manufacturing. So keep up the great work. amazing.
Thanks for inviting me on. What I didn't share was I spent 7 years in industry before I went into education as well. So I've done
There
that
you
as
go.
well. So that little bit all together, it does make a difference. If you've been there, it
Absolutely.
makes a difference. Thanks, Jeff. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, you're very welcome. So there we go. Another episode of Insights for Manufacturing comes to a close. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Look out for the next episode that will be coming out shortly on YouTube and Spotify. So that's about it. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.